Hello. In October, I had the good fortune or the opportunity to participate in a conference on returning civility to America's democracy. This was sponsored by the Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations and co-sponsored by North Idaho College. And I think there were about 17 or 18 presenters, and it included everyone from politicians. The ex-mayor and present mayor of Coeur d'Alene was there and spoke. Also a number of other politicians, as well as people representing all the different faiths within the area. Also someone representing the Islamic faith, and so I went along as the token Buddhist, and gave this talk, and I thought it is just as appropriate now as it was then, so I thought to give it again. So I began with a quote by the Dalai Lama. This is from his book on compassion. I don't know the exact title. Maybe you remember? To be compassionate. How to be compassionate. Thank you. He said, "When I speak with people, I do so with a sense that I am a member of their family. Although you and I may be meeting for the first time, I accept you as a friend. I do not do so as a Buddhist, nor as a Tibetan, nor as the Dalai Lama. I do so as one human being speaking with another. If you and I find common ground as human beings, then we can communicate on a basic level. But if I think I'm a monk or I'm a Buddhist, these are peripheral or secondary in comparison to my nature as a human being. Whether you are educated or uneducated, young or old, rich or poor, is secondary. In truth, you and I already know each other profoundly as human beings who share the same basic goals. We all seek happiness and we do not want suffering. Love, compassion, and concern for others are the real sources of happiness. With these in abundance, you will not be disturbed by even the most unfortunate circumstances." Actually, it says most uncomfortable circumstances. So I chose this quote because it contains, I think, a very clear diagnosis of our societal ailments, as well as a very practical prescription for its cure. There are 7 billion humans on the planet. We may strongly identify as a man or a woman, as white or black, as Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or Jew. We may strongly identify as gay or straight, as Democrat or Republican or independent. But as His Holiness says, aren't these identities secondary and less important in comparison with our common nature as being human, as members of the human family? As soon as we begin to strongly identify with these other characteristics that differentiate us, most likely our basic tendencies arise, and there's a habit to grasp after and cling to whatever is ours or whatever agrees with our opinions, and to push away whatever is not ours. Whatever is not our group, our ethnicity, our religion, our political persuasion. So over-identification with the secondary characteristics of our life can easily turn into objectifying whatever we consider other. So objectification is a lot more than just objectifying women. Objectification more broadly means treating a person as a commodity or an object without regard for their personal individuality or dignity. Dehumanizing others in this way has tended to alienate or marginalize the human rights of women, as well as racial, ethnic, gender, religious, and political minorities. So objectifying and dehumanizing is often facilitated by a sense of power, status, and social connection. And it results in behaviors like moral exclusion and violence, or supportive violence against others. Dehumanizing hinders us from feeling empathy or properly understanding a stigmatized group. And we no longer experience distress when we treat them poorly. That's a key feature. So over the centuries, many of the great civil leaders have espoused the practice of ahimsa, or nonviolence. And His Holiness in this book goes on to say that from a Buddhist perspective, nonviolence isn't just the absence of violence. Rather, it's something much more positive and meaningful. And he says that the fuller expression of nonviolence is compassion, the practice of compassion. So genuine compassion develops when we accept others as being just like us, recognizing that each one of us wants happiness and doesn't want suffering, and that happiness is a basic human right. Our compassion grows when we develop a genuine concern about someone else's experience of difficulty or pain. And to be fully human, we must be able to imagine another person's suffering or difficulty and relate to it as the suffering that we would experience if we were in their shoes. Usually our compassionate love is biased, something that we only extend towards our family, our friends, our group, and not towards strangers, and especially not towards those we see as our enemies. But that's not genuine compassion. Unbiased compassion is a state of mind and a skill that can be easily learned and developed with practice. And naturally, once there is unbiased compassion and concern for others, there is a feeling of responsibility that arises with it. And there's an active interest in the well-being of all members of our community, and even concern for the health of our planet. To be a civil society, we must be a compassionate society. Compassion is fundamental to the making of a good, successful, and peaceful life. The interesting paradox of compassion is that we ourselves are one of the greatest beneficiaries by cultivating and practicing it. Compassion makes us happier and gives us a sense of ease in our body and our mind. It gets us out of our usual head full of anxieties, worries, disappointments, and regrets. Compassion gives us a sense of purpose beyond our petty obsessions. With compassion, we become far more understanding and patient with ourselves and others. Compassion can provide a moral compass to our life, and it gives us a good alternative to dwelling on fear or anger, self-hate, and other reactive states. It actually makes us more resilient to life's ups and downs, and it's a great antidote to self-criticism and crippling feelings of shame. It may seem counterintuitive, but compassion actually makes us more optimistic. Although it's focused on suffering, it is ultimately concerned with the positive wish to end that suffering, as well as the possibility of doing something about the suffering. So compassion training has also been shown to boost our immune system and increase our physical and mental well-being all around. The surge of scientific research on compassion in the last 10 years is helping to undermine the dominant view that portrays humans as an intrinsically selfish and competitive species. A growing body of evidence suggests that at our core, both animals and human beings actually have a compassionate instinct, a natural and automatic response that has actually ensured our survival. So the question remains, how do we make civility part of who we are? If we are to increase our compassion and concern for others, then we must be willing to open ourselves to the effects of our actions and the effects of our actions have on others. In contrast, harassing, demeaning, and demonizing others can only be done when we distance ourselves from the painful experiences of others. But morality and compassion are the building blocks of all civilizations. Civility then is expressed as courtesy, politeness, manners, and above all, respect, just to name a few. So how best do we renew these basic human values? Of course, we're not going to change the world overnight. Change will come gradually through increased awareness, and awareness will only come with education. So, of course, the change that must take place inside each and every one of us. We need to develop greater compassion and self-knowledge. We need to know where we are formidable and where we are likely to collapse in the face of someone pushing against us. And we also need to know what we will stand up for. Meditation is one way to gain this kind of self-knowledge, and also a way to develop or enhance positive qualities like compassion. I think another very important focus is through mindfulness and compassion training in the primary and secondary education system, which has proven to stem the spiraling trend of incivility in young people, scientifically proven. Many K-12 schools in the U.S. have incorporated cognitive-based compassion training programs that actually help students to learn how to increase positive emotions like compassion, tolerance, empathy for others. And such training also has shown to help young people build necessary skills to sustain and enhance relationships with others, which is on the decline with the use of so many devices, and also gain psychological flexibility and develop resilience to life's ups and downs. The number of major universities that are providing leadership in groundbreaking study and research on the mind, brain, and positive emotions is on the rise. So just to name a few, the Center for Healthy Minds at the University of Wisconsin, the Center for Compassion and Altruism Research at Stanford, and the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley. When we speak of compassion, though, I might add, compassion has nothing to do with being weak. In our daily lives as citizens of a civilized society, we should stand up to boorish behavior because it threatens the people we don't know as well as the people we do know. We should object to it simply because it's wrong. So in conclusion, for many of us, listening to speeches such as this one is an exercise in covering familiar territory, but such exercises hopefully confirm our commitment to the values that we hold dear, and these also challenge us to lead by genuine example. So just to conclude with a couple of quotes by His Holiness, he says, compassion is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. And he's also known for saying, be kind whenever it is possible, and it is always possible.